Some things only happen in soap operas, and some things not even a soap opera would dare to invent. Now tell me, what would you do if a stranger saved your child's life, and then said something that shattered you inside? That's what happened to Dr. Arthur Brandeau, a famous surgeon, owner of a private hospital, wealthy down to the bone. But that day, in that park, it wasn't his money that made the difference. It was a skinny little girl, wearing worn flip-flops and a ribbon in her hair, who changed everything. Before I tell you what she said, because trust me, you'll want to know, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, or you'll end up like Dr. Arthur, regretting that you ignored the signs. The afternoon was beautiful, golden sunlight, clear sky, birds chirping like it was a Sunday mass. Arthur had decided to take little Lucas to the park. A rare thing, because a busy man barely has time to breathe, let alone push a swing. While the boy ran to the slide, Arthur adjusted his tie and talked on the phone about $1 million meeting. That's when he heard the scream, one of those screams that cuts through your chest, and the world froze. Lucas, his son, was lying on the ground, trembling, lips turning blue, a piece of candy beside him, an opened wrapper, allergy, anaphylaxis, and no one nearby with adrenaline or an EpiPen, but someone ran, faster than any adult. A girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, sharp eyes, bare feet, and a stuffed teddy bear dangling from her arm. She knelt beside the boy, dug into a crumpled little pouch, and pulled out a syringe, injected it right there, with frightening precision. Within seconds, Lucas was breathing again. Arthur rushed over, pushing through the crowd, scooped up his son, shaking, sweating. He looked at the girl, confused. "Who are you? How did you know what to do?" And then came the line, the one that made the man who operated on hearts feel his own nearly stop. "I just did what my mom taught me before she died, sir. She said if I ever saw someone dying like she did, I couldn't just stand there." Arthur didn't reply. He couldn't. That girl saved his son and brought back a memory he'd buried deep. Some people appear in our lives like miracles, then vanish like curses. And that's how it was with the little girl from the park. Arthur, still holding his son, tried to speak, but his throat was choked with an emotion no scalpel could fix. The girl's eyes were firm, but sad, like she'd seen more death than a coroner. "What's your name, sweetie?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "They just call me Belle, but you can call me nobody. It's the same thing." And before he could insist, she turned away, walking toward the gazebo, her teddy bear swinging from her arm like it was the only friend she had left. She disappeared into the dispersing crowd. Arthur shouted, "Wait! I want to thank you! I want to help!" But she didn't look back. Police arrived. The ambulance too. Lucas was safe. But Arthur couldn't get that girl out of his mind. The way she injected the shot, the precision, that wasn't just instinct. That was training, experience. "That girl, she's done this before," said a firefighter, scratching his head. That night Arthur didn't sleep. Lucas was fine, but he was haunted. The girl's words burned inside him like fever. She said she did what her mother taught her before she died. The next day he went back to the park, searching for clues, anything. He showed people photos of Lucas, asking if they remembered the girl. Nothing. It was as if Belle had never existed. But then, an old lady selling cotton candy pointed to the ground near the slide. "Look there, sir, that was near where she knelt." Arthur crouched down. It was a broken medallion, cheap aluminum, an almost faded inscription, and on the back, 3 crooked letters scratched in pen, BMS. He pocketed it like someone hiding a secret he didn't yet understand. On his way back to the car, he heard a voice from a group of homeless people. "The little girl with the teddy bear? Word is she lives in a shelter that's not really a shelter, by the old train line. But be careful, Doc. That girl's got too much pain in her eyes." From that moment, Arthur made a decision. He would find Belle, not just to thank her, but because something about that story was poking at a past he'd tried to bury. And when you dig too far into the past, you might unearth something no one wants to see. They say if you go looking, you'll find. But no one warns you that what you find might be worse than what you lost. Arthur wasn't the kind of man who chased after anything that wasn't on his schedule, but that girl, that look, and especially that sentence, were making a noise in his chest that even silence couldn't fix. He spent 3 days going back and forth along that so-called train line, a place forgotten even by God. Rotten wooden houses, skinny dogs barking at the wind, children playing with flat tires in the mud, a kind of misery his money wasn't used to seeing up close. On the first visit, no one said anything. On the second, a guy with a scar on his face whispered, "The girl with the teddy bear. People say she's been seen near the old workshop, but be careful, time's frozen there and danger walks free." And that's where Arthur saw her, from a distance, sitting on the curb, hugging the teddy bear, eating a dry piece of bread, alone. The girl who saved his son now looked like a child the whole world had forgotten. Arthur approached slowly, like someone nearing a frightened bird. "Belle?" She looked sideways, serious face, distrustful, but she didn't run. "Thought you'd forgotten me already." "Impossible," he said. "You saved my son's life. I came to thank you and to help you." She let out a bitter chuckle. Help? Gonna give me a handout?" "No, I want to offer you a place, a home." She lowered her gaze, fiddled with the bow on her teddy bear, like she was whispering a secret to him. "My mom used to say no place is a home if you're just a guest." Silence. Arthur sat beside her, the two of them side by side on the curb, a millionaire doctor and an invisible girl. "Tell me about your mom," he asked. She hesitated, but started. "She worked at a hospital, cleaning staff. Taught me everything she knew, even what to do when someone's dying, because that's how she died, alone, in a hospital hallway." Arthur froze. "Which hospital?" "Some place called San Rafael. They said she couldn't get care because she didn't have insurance, but she used to clean there. Funny, right?" Arthur's hand trembled. San Rafael was his. His heart started beating differently, because that woman's name, he remembered it too well, and it was a name he had gone out of his way to forget. Some names you repeat 1,000 times out of love, and then spend years trying to erase with silence, shame, and distance. But the problem is, the past doesn't respect forgetting. It waits and comes back. The name the girl said wasn't just any name. It was Marina Soares. When Arthur heard that, his hand went cold, his head heavy. The memory hit like a wet slap to the face. Marina Soares. She wasn't just a worker. She'd been at San Rafael for nearly 8 years, started cleaning the break rooms, then moved to sterilization. Quiet, discreet, always with a sad smile. But there was a time when she and Arthur had crossed paths more than they should have. Exchanged glances in the hallway, a joke here, a forgotten coffee there, until one rainy, slow shift night became 2. He never admitted anything, never told anyone, and when Marina showed up pregnant, he acted like he didn't even know her. She never asked for anything, never came looking, kept working, pregnant, tired, swollen feet, still with the same sad smile. Arthur remembered all this like a man running backward from a fire. And now, on that curb, the daughter of that woman was in front of him, with the same eyes as her mother. Belle had no idea who he was. She only knew he was the father of the boy she saved. Arthur could barely breathe. "Belle, do you know your father's name?" She shrugged. "My mom used to say my dad was just a mistake she didn't have time to fix, and that I was the only good part of him." That hurt, like the words were written with a knife. "Did she ever say where you were born?" "Said I was born in a supply closet. Rushed labor during a shift change. Some people saw it but pretended they didn't." Arthur closed his eyes. He remembered that day. A doctor had commented in the elevator, "Marina almost lost the baby, and no one helped." He just lowered his head. "And she died. When?" 2 years ago. Had a crisis. They wouldn't let her into the ER without payment. She died outside, in the rain." Arthur bit his lip, tasted the regret. He wanted to say everything, wanted to hug that girl and shout that she wasn't nobody. She was his daughter. But he didn't say it. Not there. Not yet. "Belle, I'm going to take care of you." She looked at him with a mix of anger and distrust. "Why?" "Because I saved your kid." Arthur swallowed hard. "Because you saved something in me I thought I'd lost a long time ago." She said nothing, but her silence said a lot, and Arthur knew the past had come back, and now it wanted to be paid. With interest. Some debts aren't written on paper, but they're carved into the soul, and when they're due, there's no lawyer, no fortune, only reckoning. Arthur returned home with his heart shattered. That girl, Belle, was his daughter. The bill had arrived, not in the form of a lawsuit nor a scandal, but in the cruelest way, a child he abandoned, without ever having held her. That night was long. He spent hours staring at the ceiling, holding the broken medal in his hand. BMS, Belle, Marina, Suarez, the name of the woman he used and discarded, and of the daughter who grew up with no last name, no home, no father. Lucas slept peacefully in the next room, and Arthur carried a world of guilt on his shoulders. The next day, he called the hospital staff. "I want Marina Suarez's records. Medical files, contracts, history, everything now." The assistant hesitated. "Doctor, Marina, that one who—" "Yes, bring me everything." 2 hours later, he had a stack of papers on his desk, page by page, silence broken only by the rustling of sheets. There were reports, time cards, unfair warnings she received, denied requests, medical bills no one reimbursed, and finally, her death record. Cause, anaphylactic shock. Care denied due to lack of insurance coverage. The cold stamp read, "Patient not admitted." Protocol followed. But it wasn't a protocol. It was a sentence. Marina died at the door of the hospital Arthur managed. Died like a nobody. Alone. And he? He pretended he didn't even remember the smell of her hair. Arthur knew he couldn't change the past, but he could give her daughter a future. He called his lawyer and said, "I want to open a foundation, in her name, to help orphan children, starting with Belle. Belle, my daughter." The lawyer didn't say a word, but wrote it down. That same week, Arthur returned to the train line. He searched for Belle, brought clothes, food, and a proposal. "I want to take you with me, take care of you, give you a home, not out of pity, not out of debt, but because it's the least I can do. After everything." She crossed her arms. "What if I don't want to?" Arthur lowered his head. "I'll come back, every day, until you do." And he did. For 7 days, rain, sun, wind, and fear. Until the 8th day, he found a note in the same spot where she used to sit. "If you come back tomorrow, I'll go with you. But first I want to know, why did it take you so long?" Arthur felt the question like a punch to the gut. Why did it take so long? And he had no answer. Only one certainty. If he had waited one more day, he might never have been able to make things right. A big house isn't always a home. You can have imported rugs, crystal chandeliers, marble stairs, and still hear the same echo as an empty church after Mass. And it was in that big, cold house that Belle set foot for the first time, with the cautious steps of someone who doesn't know whether they're being welcomed or kicked out again. Arthur greeted her at the door, pressed suit, forced smile, trying to look warm. But her gaze was too trained to fall for theatre. "Come in, Belle. This is your home now, too." She stood still, clutching her worn-out teddy bear like a shield, looked at the porcelain floor, the expensive paintings on the walls, the oversized couch meant for a family that didn't exist. "This isn't a house. It's a showroom." Arthur swallowed hard. That stung, because it was true. He had built an empire, but never built a home. Not even when he got married, not even when Lucas was born. His wife, in fact, had left long ago. Tired of being married to a man who only had time for surgery and money, she took a piece of Arthur's heart with her and left the rest running on autopilot. Now he was trying to patch things up with a wounded child and a past still bleeding. Lucas peeked from the top of the stairs, curious. "Dad, is that her?" Arthur nodded. "Lucas, This is Belle. She saved your life, remember?" The boy ran down smiling and hugged Belle tightly, and she, surprised, hugged back. It was the first touch of affection she had received in a long time, without the fear of losing it. That night, Arthur had a special dinner prepared, but Belle ate little, didn't talk much, just observed. "If I have to leave tomorrow, please tell me in advance," she whispered. "You're not leaving, Belle. This is your home now. People have told me that before." And that's when Arthur realized it wasn't enough to put food on the table and a roof over her head. She didn't want comfort. She wanted trust, and that takes time to build. In the following days, Belle stayed, but every move was cautious, like someone walking on a floor that might collapse. Lucas loved having her around. She told stories, drew with him, even taught first aid using a stuffed doll. But at night, she cried alone. Arthur saw her once, through the crack in the door, sitting on the bed, hugging the teddy bear, murmuring, "Mom, if you're listening, help me trust him." He quietly closed the door, and there, in the dark hallway, fell to his knees, because nothing had ever hurt more than being called him. The following week, he took Belle to Marina's grave, a simple cemetery, a worn-out tombstone. "Your mother was special," he said. "And I was a coward." Belle didn't reply, just knelt, touched the cold stone, and said, "I forgive you, Mom, even though you chose him and never told me the truth." Arthur tried to hold back tears. He couldn't, because in that moment he realized the forgiveness he needed wasn't just hers, it was his own. There are memories we think we've forgotten, but all it takes is a smell, a sound, or a scrap of paper to wake them from where they've been hiding. And on that cloudy Saturday, it was a child's drawing that opened the door to a past Arthur thought was buried. Belle was more at ease that day. Lucas laughed out loud. The two played guessing games on the living room floor, while Arthur pretended to read reports at the table, but he was listening, and for the first time in years, it felt good. "Dad!" Lucas yelled. "Belle drew the three of us!" Arthur dropped the papers, walked over to the rug, and saw, scribbled in colored pencil, a crooked drawing full of meaning. 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall one in a tie, a small one in a blue shirt, and in the middle, a girl with braids and a teddy bear in her hand. What caught his eye was the writing underneath, "Our family, Daddy, Belzina, and Lucas." Arthur read it silently. Belzina, that nickname. He hadn't heard it in decades, and the world seemed to spin back to a rainy afternoon in the hospital parking lot. Marina, still young, hair tied back, baggy lab coat, leaning against the cafeteria door, smiling shyly. "If I ever have a daughter, I'll call her Belzina," she had said, laughing. "Small, strong, and sweet, like me, but with fewer scars." At the time, Arthur laughed, thought it was cute, and then forgot, or pretended to. Now that nickname was right there, written in colored pencil, on the paper of a child who didn't even know the weight it carried. He left the room, went into the study, closed the door, and let himself cry. Not a desperate cry, but the kind that builds up, part rage, part longing, part guilt. And for the first time he said out loud, "Marina, I failed, but I'll take care of her. I swear I will." Later that night, already in bed, Arthur heard soft footsteps in the hallway. The door opened slowly. It was Belle. "Can I sleep here tonight?" Arthur shifted, making room beside him. "Of course." She lay down without saying anything, teddy bear in hand, eyes staring at the ceiling, until she whispered, "Did you know my mom before?" The question was blunt, sharp, straight. Arthur hesitated, but answered honestly, "Yes." Silence. "Then why didn't you come find me?" He took a deep breath. The words hurt more than the silences. "Because I was a coward. Because I was afraid of what I might find. Because I was everything a father shouldn't be." She turned on her side, stared at him, then, without warning, rested her head on his chest. "Mom used to say we're made by the choices we fix, not by the ones we mess up." Arthur closed his eyes, and in that moment, for the first time in forever, he felt like a father. Some truths sneak in quietly, like a breeze through a crack. But others, they break the door down. And on that Monday, truth showed up in high heels, stealing spotlights and spitting the past into the open. It all started with a news story. A local station wanted to feature Arthur's new project, the Millionaire Foundation, created to support children in vulnerable situations. The reporter's angle was clear: showcase the millionaire with a new heart. Everything was rehearsed. Talk about Marina's tragedy, the story of redemption, the charity's purpose. What no one expected was who would show up at the hospital gate in the middle of filming. I knew Marina. I saw what they did to her, and I know what this man did too. The voice came from an older woman, strong-willed, her face lined with years and unresolved anger. Her name was Alzira, former head of hospital cleaning. Back when Marina died, Alzira was her supervisor. She'd been let go shortly after. No clear reason, or too many reasons. She pushed the gate open, holding a thick envelope in one hand. It's all here. Falsified reports, ignored requests, and a letter she wrote a month before she died. She said that if anything happened to her, someone should look for this. Arthur, watching from the hospital balcony, rushed downstairs. "Mrs. Alzira, please, let's talk." "Now you want to talk? I asked to see you 3 times back then. Marina wasn't just a worker. She was like a daughter to me, and you all let her die like a piece of paper forgotten in a drawer." The media didn't waste a second. Microphones up, flashbulbs popping, headlines being written live. Arthur took the envelope. His hands trembled. He opened it, read it, recognized Marina's handwriting. "If I die, know that I tried. I asked for help. I screamed, but no one listened. If someday my daughter reads this, I want her to know I fought for her until the end." The words echoed in his mind. Marina knew. She knew they wouldn't help her, knew she might die. But even so, she wrote, as if she knew justice would someday knock at the door. Arthur climbed the stairs to the hospital auditorium, faced the cameras, took the mic. "I have something to say." The silence was instant, heavy. Marina Suarez died unjustly because of the system's negligence and because of my own cowardice. Yes, she came to me. Yes, she asked for help, and I turned away, out of shame, out of fear of scandal. But truth doesn't wait for convenience, and today I take full responsibility. He paused, looked out over the room, every face frozen. "And more than that, this foundation I started will be run by the person who has more right than I ever did." Her daughter gasps, murmurs, a beat of disbelief. "Yes, Belle, the girl who saved my son, is also my daughter." The press room exploded in reaction, cameras flashing, mouths agape. But Arthur wasn't speaking as a hospital director anymore, nor as a millionaire. He was speaking as a man, and more than that, as a father. At the back of the room, Belle stood silently. She didn't smile. She just whispered to the teddy bear in her arms, "See, Mom?" He said it. Truth had finally come out of the drawer, and now it was going to change everything. After the public confession, Arthur thought the world would collapse on him, and it did, just not the way he imagined. Some doors closed, sponsors vanished, board members resigned from the hospital. Some even called it an emotional publicity stunt. But what Arthur lost most was the fear of being the man he never had the courage to be. From that day forward, something strange happened, beautiful and painful. People began sending letters, not complaints, confessions, letters from other Marinas. "My sister also died at the hospital gates because she didn't have insurance. My son was only seen when it was too late. My mom cleaned operating rooms and died without even being recognized as a worker." And the Marina Suarez Foundation became a symbol. Belle, unintentionally, became the face of a cause she never even knew existed. And Arthur became human. He no longer wore pristine white coats. He attended community meetings, visited forgotten neighborhoods, and joined support centers. He barely slept, but when he did, he slept with less guilt. One afternoon, Belle entered the foundation's office. The room was simple, but alive. The walls were covered with children's drawings, and in the center, a new portrait of Marina, not a photo, a charcoal painting, made by a street artist, using only coal and heart. Belle stared at the painting for long minutes. "I didn't remember her smile like that," she whispered. Arthur stepped closer. "Did he use a different photo?" "No. He said he didn't need one. He said her smile was in the way I talked about her." Pause. The kind of pause that feels like a century. "Do you think she'd be proud of me?" Belle asked, looking down at her paint-stained hands after a long day painting with the kids. Arthur didn't answer right away. He walked over to a drawer and pulled out an envelope. This arrived today. Recommended reading for the Foundation's director. Belle opened it. It was a letter from a girl named Sarah, 12 years old, living in the Alto Favela. Written in crooked handwriting and overflowing emotion. "Hi, Aunt Belle. Before you came, nobody visited us. Now we have doctors, food, classes. Thank you, because my brother almost went into crime, but now he wants to be a nurse. You know why? Because you said saving lives is more beautiful than taking them." Belle gripped the letter tightly. Her eyes shimmered, though she tried to hide it. "Feels like I'm starting to believe that home is where we build futures." Arthur smiled. "Home is where we get to start over, even if we don't deserve it." She walked over to the window. The sky was silver, the kind of day that feels freshly washed. Down below, a group of kids played in the newly renovated Foundation courtyard. Belle leaned her forehead against the glass. "You know, Dad, I didn't just want to change my story. I wanted to change the stories of those who never even got to tell theirs." Arthur looked at her. The poor girl. The invisible one, the child born from mistaken silence, had become a bridge, a symbol, a seed of something beautiful. "Then let's plant, my daughter. Even flowers grow through asphalt. They just need courage and water." Outside, one of the children yelled, "Aunt Belle, come play with us." She smiled and ran. Some people are born to be invisible, but sometimes destiny switches on the spotlight, right over someone who's always walked in the dark. The official opening of the new headquarters of the Marina Suarez Foundation happened on a hot Saturday, with the smell of popcorn in the air and the sound of children's laughter everywhere. Belle wore a simple floral dress, with the same worn-out teddy bear tied to her waist, now with a brand-new red ribbon, a gift from Lucas. The courtyard was full. Journalists, volunteers, emotional mothers, important people, and even more important ones, the children. Those who, like Belle, once went to sleep unsure if tomorrow would come. Arthur watched everything from a distance, discreetly, in a plain suit, no spotlight, no longer Dr. Brandon from the billboards. Now, just a man who finally chose to be a father. Belle stepped up on the makeshift stage. She took the microphone with trembling hands, looked at the crowd, took a deep breath. "Good afternoon," the kids shouted back, loud and cheerful. "Good afternoon!" She laughed, then began. "I'm not good with speeches. My mum used to say the prettiest words are the ones that come from the heart, not from a dictionary." The crowd hushed in attentive silence. For a long time I thought I was made to go unnoticed, that my place was in the corner waiting for leftovers, but then I understood that even shadows have value, because shadows show that there's light nearby, and sometimes we are the light the other can't see. She pointed to the mural behind her. A panel full of pictures, each one a different story. Boys who left the drug trade, girls who went back to school, parents who found their children again, people who thought they were worth nothing, now teaching others that everyone is worth something. This foundation isn't mine, it's ours, and it was born from the silence of a woman who died without being heard, but who left in me a scream so strong it echoed until someone listened. Pause. I thank God for meeting my father, yes, but even more, for him having the courage to recognize me, courage to change, courage to start again, by my side. The applause began slow, then exploded. Belle stepped down from the stage, eyes full of tears. Arthur waited at the bottom of the steps. She ran and hugged him tightly. "Are you proud of me, Dad?" "More than proud, Belzina. I'm learning from you how to start from zero, with a full heart." In a corner of the courtyard, a small girl gave Belle a drawing. It showed her with angel wings, and scribbled underneath, "You are my angel." Belle knelt down, smiled, hugged the girl, and said, "I'm no angel, but I'm the daughter of one, and now I want to fly in the way she never could." After the grand opening celebration, Belle truly began to inhabit the space that had always been hers, even before she knew it. But love, real love, can be terrifying, especially for those who've spent their lives expecting to be kicked out. Arthur could see it. Belle walked through the house with steps too light, as if afraid she might wake up in a shelter again. She slept with the lights on, still had nightmares where she called out for her mother, and when she came home from school, she'd pause at the gate, staring at the house, as if checking whether she was still welcome. One day, she came back quieter than usual. Arthur called her over to talk. "Did something happen?" Belle hesitated. "A boy at school said I'm only living here because you feel guilty, that once you get tired, you'll send me back." Arthur winced, like he'd been pierced by a rusty needle. He knelt down in front of her. "Belle, listen closely to what I'm about to say. You're not here because of guilt. You're here because you're my daughter, and there's no returning what's real love." She bit her lip, holding back tears. But her eyes were begging for protection. Arthur hugged her tight. And in that embrace, she broke. She cried like a child finally feeling like someone's child, like someone who'd survived an earthquake and had just leaned against a solid wall. The next day, she did something she'd never done before. She left a note on the fridge. "Dad, I'll be back after school. Love you." 3 little words. But to Arthur, it felt like she'd written a full declaration of life. Because love doesn't always come in grand declarations. Sometimes it's just a note stuck with a fridge magnet. And finally, that house was becoming a real home. There are families made of blood, and families that are born in a glance, in shared pain, in a hand extended when the world turns away. Belle had been living in the house for 3 months. She already knew where everything was, helped Lucas with homework, even knew the neighbors' names. But something was still missing. A word, a gesture, an invisible seal, the last name. One ordinary afternoon after lunch, Lucas asked, "Dad, why doesn't Belle have the same last name as us?" Arthur froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. He looked at Belle. She lowered her eyes. "Because," Arthur began, voice caught in his throat, "because no one ever gave it to her. But she's my sister now, right? So she should have it." Belle gave a shy smile, but inside, her heart was racing. That night, Arthur entered her room with a folder in hand. He sat on the edge of her bed. "I talked to the lawyer. Here it is, the documents. If you want, we can start the process to make it official, so you'll carry the family name too." Belle's eyes widened. "But what if I don't want to forget my mum's name?" Arthur squeezed her hand. "You don't have to forget anything. You can be Belle Suarez Brandon if you'd like. Your name is your story, and your story is made of the 2 halves that brought you here." Belle was quiet. She looked at the ceiling, then at her teddy bear. And then she said, "Then put Suarez first, so she stays in front like she always did in life." Arthur smiled, eyes wet. "You'll be the first Brando to put love ahead of pride." The next day, they went to the notary's office together. The clerk looked at the form, then at them. "Father and daughter?" he asked. Arthur answered before Belle could hesitate. "Yes, and today she's receiving what was hers all along." Belle signed, hands trembling, heart racing. When they stepped out, the sun was bright on the sidewalk. Arthur wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Ready to carry one more name?" She smiled. "I'm ready to carry anything, as long as you stay by my side. Family, sometimes, is that. A scribbled name on a piece of paper with the weight of an entire life." And from that day forward, Belle Suarez Brandon wasn't just an invisible girl anymore. She was the heir to everything love can mend. There's pain that goes away. There's pain that pretends to go away, And there's pain that only transforms into scars, into memory, into strength. Belle now had a new name on paper, but inside her still lived the girl who grew up running from shelter to shelter, collecting absences. She was okay, more cheerful, more confident, but still flinched at thunder, still slept clutching her teddy bear like she was holding the whole world, still had too much silence behind her eyes. Arthur noticed. So he proposed something different. "How about we start therapy together?" Belle frowned. "I'm not crazy," Arthur smiled. "Neither am I. But sometimes we need help to understand what we're feeling. Feelings are like wounds. If you don't treat them, they get infected." She agreed, a bit suspicious, but she went. The first sessions were hard. Belle barely spoke, stared at the floor, answered with yes, no, or whatever. But on the fourth session, she broke down. She talked about the night her mother died, about how she held her mother's body in her arms for nearly 20 minutes before anyone showed up. Talked about the fear of being sent to an orphanage, talked about the guilt of surviving, talked about the hatred she felt for the faceless father, and Arthur just listened, head bowed, heart crushed, eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to hate you," Belle said, sobbing. "Really. But you looked at me like no one ever had, and that confused me." Arthur gripped her hand tightly. "I hated myself for a long time too, and I'm still learning how to forgive myself. But if you can, teach me how." That's when the scar began to form, because a scar is that, skin that decided to keep going after the wound. The therapist suggested Belle write a letter to Marina, and she did, 3 pages. She cried while writing, laughed, remembering, folded it carefully, and placed it in the picture frame of Marina at the foundation. "Mom, I'm okay. He took care of me. He understood. And now I understand too, that you taught me to save lives, and I saved his. What we have now is ours, and I'll protect it the way you protected me." Arthur read it secretly and cried in secret, because that day he no longer saw the fragile little girl who saved his son. He saw a woman, born from pain and transforming everything into love. Some stages are just made of wood, and some are altars. It was on a hot Friday afternoon that Belle, the girl who was once only seen through pain, stepped onto one of those altars without spotlights, but full of eyes watching. The municipal school where she studied had organized a closing ceremony for the semester. Lucas was in a play. Arthur, of course, went to watch, proud like he was watching his own heart dancing on stage. Belle hadn't planned to participate, just to watch. But the school coordinator insisted. We needed someone to give the final speech. "And who better than you, Belle?" She trembled inside, but agreed. "Just a short word, right? Only some words carry the weight of a lifetime." That night, the improvised auditorium in the schoolyard was packed. Parents, teachers, grandparents, kids in uniform, balloons, lights blinking like it was Christmas. Lucas performed first. Wearing a toy stethoscope and a doctor's hat, he looked at Belle mid-performance and shouted, "I want to save lives like you, sis." The audience laughed and applauded. Arthur discreetly wiped his eyes. Then came the final speech. The principal called out, "Let's welcome our student and inspiration, Belle Suarez Brando." She walked up slowly, felt her heartbeat in her heels, grabbed the microphone with sweaty hands, took a breath. "I never thought I'd speak in front of people, because for a long time no one ever listened to me, but today I have something to say." Pause. The whole court fell silent. For years I kept asking why my mum had to die like that, why I had to live the way I did, why no one came. She looked forward, faced the crowd, eyes that didn't run from shadows anymore. "But now I understand that all of that made me who I am, and sometimes we go through darkness. Not to get lost, but to be someone else's light later." Meh, in the back, Arthur held in a sob. "I'm not rich, but today I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and more than that, I'm someone who learned to turn abandonment into shelter. And I want to be a shelter, for whoever needs it." The applause began slowly. then exploded. It wasn't courtesy. It was chills. Belle smiled, stepped down from the stage. Arthur ran to her, overwhelmed. "You left me speechless," he said. She laughed. "And it was supposed to be just a little speech, right?" Arthur hugged her, right there in front of everyone. And this time Belle wasn't afraid of being seen, because the girl who once was called Nobody was now an example, and the invisible girl had become a voice. Time passed, the foundation grew, the house too, but what grew the most was Belle, not in height, not in age, but in presence, in essence. The girl who once hid behind a worn-out teddy bear was now the name behind projects, the face of campaigns, and, most beautifully, a mirror of hope for many children who had once been tossed into the trash bin of the system. She turned 18 on a golden evening. Arthur planned a simple dinner at home, only the closest people. Lucas baked a crooked cake, full of love, and on the table, beyond hugs, was a box, dark wood, ribbon bow, Arthur's gift. "Open it." Belle opened it. Inside, something she didn't expect, the restored necklace. "I had it fixed, and now there's space for both names." On the back engraved, "Belle Suarez Brandon, daughter of love, heir of courage." She cried, openly. Arthur held her hand and said, "You taught me that love isn't proven with words. It's built with presence, and you built in me a man I didn't even know existed." Belle, teary-eyed, replied softly, "You were the first man who stayed, even after seeing all of me." They hugged right there. The daughter born of a mistake, who became a blessing, the father who ran from truth and found redemption in it. Later that night, Belle stepped out into the yard. The sky was clear and full of stars. The wind was soft. She looked up as if calling, "Mom, I did it." Inside, Lucas played piano gently. Arthur watched from the window, and for a second, the world seemed in the right place. Belle turned to the camera, part of a documentary being filmed at the foundation, and said, "If you've ever felt invisible, remember this. Your pain can be a seed of something so beautiful that even those who ignored you will want to applaud you." She smiled. "But the greatest victories isn't being seen, it's seeing yourself with pride in the mirror." What did you think of this story? Comment below, leave a like to support the channel, and subscribe so you don't miss more amazing stories like this one. Until next time, from your rich grandpa.